We will cover some intense haunted roads today, but I know there are countless haunted hotspots out there we haven't touched on yet. This is where I need your help. I want to shine a light on the terrifying tales you know best. So, if there's a local legend, a misty lane, or a cursed street you think I absolutely have to investigate for a future video, leave the location and its story in the comments. Let's build the ultimate list of Australia's or any other country's most haunted places together. 10. The road to Jenny Dixon Reserve, New South Wales Central Coast. The road leading to Jenny Dixon Reserve, often cited as the stretch along Wilfred Barrett Drive, carries one of the Central Coast's most tragic and well-documented urban legends, layered over a much older, seafaring history. The reserve itself is near a beach originally named Janet Dixon after a coal schooner wreck in 1871, which has its own tales of a woman's ghost searching for a lost child from one of the many shipwrecks. However, the road's specific, terrifying legend stems from the 1970s. A young woman was hitchhiking along the lonely, dark stretch of road when she was picked up by 5 young men. They proceeded to sexually assault and brutally beat her, leaving her for dead near Jenny Dixon Beach. She died from her injuries soon after, but before she passed, she vowed she would have her revenge. The history after Haunted is a macabre testament to her vow. In the years that followed, the 5 young men, who had been suspected but never charged, began to die in a series of extremely grisly, seemingly accidental deaths and suicides, including car wrecks, a self-inflicted gunshot, and a hanging. All of them reportedly complained of being haunted and tormented by the girl's spirit in the lead-up to their demise. Today, the road is famous for the sightings of a phantom hitchhiker, a young woman in mid-century attire who appears on the roadside. Many drivers have swerved to avoid her, or pulled over to offer a lift, only for her to suddenly disappear from the back seat in a chill of air. The police have even reported hundreds of sightings of this mournful figure. She is the ghost of a Victoria Tim who successfully exacted her vengeance, and who still lingers, a perpetual, sad reminder of the brutal past and a vengeful spirit forever seeking justice on the lonely road where her final journey began. 9. Gundaroo Drive, Gungahlin, Canberra. Gundaroo Drive is a major arterial road cutting through the northern Canberra suburb of Gungahlin, and its haunting is a specific, modern, and high-speed urban legend. Unlike many haunted roads tied to colonial tragedy, Gundaroo Drive's horror story is all about the sudden, terrifying encounter in the dead of night. Its history before the haunting is simply the history of a rapidly expanding modern suburb, new roads, new traffic, and the increased chance of high-speed accidents, which unfortunately have occurred along this long, straight stretch. The core of the haunting is the sighting of a phantom headlight. Drivers traveling along Gundaroo Drive late at night report seeing a single, incredibly bright light in their rearview mirror. This light will accelerate at an alarming rate, drawing closer and closer, sometimes even weaving or flashing as if an aggressive driver is behind them. Just as the light gets close enough to be identifiable as an approaching vehicle, it suddenly and completely vanishes. There is no firm historical name or specific Victoria Tim attached, but the legend has evolved to suggest the phantom light belongs to a reckless young driver who died tragically in a crash along the road, and whose spirit is forever tailgating the living, perhaps as a mischievous prank or a desperate warning before their spectral crash. The chilling part is that it often leaves witnesses feeling a profound physical dread and confusion, as if they had just narrowly avoided a collision with nothing at all. 8. Wombeyan Caves Road, Southern Tablelands, New South Wales. Wombeyan Caves Road is not haunted by a specific ghost, but rather by the very land itself. This 84-kilometer journey is notorious among local drivers for its treacherous nature, particularly the eastern stretch descending from Mittagong. It is a long, narrow ribbon of asphalt and unsealed earth, winding violently along cliff faces, making it one of the most physically dangerous roads in New South Wales. This route was a notorious colonial-era track, linking the Southern Highlands to the wonders of the Wombeyan Caves, a place known to the Gundaroo people for millennia. According to the ancient Dreamtime story, the caves themselves were formed by the battle of 2 great spirits, and the traditional custodians believed the labyrinthine depths were the home of powerful spirits and creation energies. The haunting phenomenon of the road is the overwhelming, psychic terror felt by drivers who brave the most isolated and cliff-hugging sections. People report an intense and sudden sense of unseen pressure, as though the sheer drop and the surrounding wilderness are actively trying to consume the car. This feeling of unnatural unease is often accompanied by the vehicle seeming to struggle on easy sections, or the sensation of being watched from the thick, dark bushland lining the road. The legend holds that the danger of the road is an eternal spiritual warning. Many of the cave's first caretakers and visitors would have traveled this difficult track by horseback or horse-drawn coach, where small accidents meant certain death. The spirits of the land, those ancient, powerful entities, are believed to resent the road's intrusion. Drivers say the road itself becomes a living entity at night, creating a terrifying, winding journey where the cliff edges seem to move closer, and every hairpin turn feels like a deliberate attempt by the restless, rugged mountain spirits to drive the vehicle into the void. This road is the physical manifestation of a psychic barrier, a place that does not want to be entered. 7. Old Sydney Road, South Coast, New South Wales. While the south coast of New South Wales is riddled with many old Sydney roads, remnants of the long, treacherous route to the colonial capital, specific, named hauntings for this general term are rare, often folding into the legends of nearby spots like the Bloody Mile we discussed earlier. However, the history of any old Sydney road on the coast is one of extreme difficulty, isolation, bush bandits, and harsh travel where accidents were common and help was days away. The most consistent supernatural narrative tied to these forgotten routes is the presence of a phantom bushranger or, in some tales, a lost traveler. These roads were lifelines for gold prospectors, mail coaches, and supply wagons, all ripe targets for criminals. The deep, isolated gullies and dense scrub provided perfect ambush spots. The real-life encounters on these abandoned stretches of Old Sydney Road are often reported by hikers or drivers who mistakenly turn off the modern highway. They speak of an overwhelming sense of being watched, or a sudden, unexplained flash of light that looks like an old lantern or a musket flash. The chilling part comes with the alleged apparition of a man in colonial-era clothing, a figure believed to be a bushranger who met a violent end, or perhaps a robbed and murdered traveler. The ghost is said to appear on the side of the road, only to dissolve when approached, forever guarding, or perhaps searching for the treasure, or the life, he lost in the unforgiving coastal scrub. 6. King George Avenue, Tamworth, New South Wales. Before its ghostly reputation took hold, King George Avenue in Tamworth was a classic slice of Australian country road, long and straight, running through the New England region of New South Wales. This straight and isolated nature, however, provided the perfect setting for its darker, unofficial history. It became a popular, high-speed drag racing strip for local youth, especially in the 1970s and 80s. The history turned tragic when this reckless activity led to countless fatalities from high-speed crashes over the years. These sudden, violent deaths transformed the road from a simple avenue into the site of enduring grief and restless energy. The haunting phenomenon here is known as the ghost car. It's a terrifying, hyper-specific encounter that has become a rite of passage for many brave or reckless locals. Drivers proceeding down the avenue at night, often reversing or turning around at the deserted end of the road, report a phantom set of headlights suddenly appearing. These lights don't behave like a real car. They barrel towards the witness at impossible speeds, seeming to fly straight at their vehicle before abruptly vanishing just before impact. Beyond the visible terror, people also report random and inexplicable electrical problems in their cars, fuses blowing, lights flickering, and the cabin temperature plummeting without the air conditioning being on. The prevailing belief is that these are the furious, eternal spirits of the young people who died there, forever repeating their fatal, high-speed journeys and attempting to reenact their crashes, ensuring that anyone who trespasses on their deadly strip of asphalt receives a petrifying, up-close reminder of the road's bloody past. 5. Straws Lane, Anti-Gravity Hill, Woodend, Victoria. Straws Lane in Woodend, Victoria, is known locally as the famous Anti-Gravity Hill, a place of bafflement not far from the spooky Hanging Rock. Its history is largely that of a typical, unremarkable country lane in a beautiful, but isolated, rural area. The haunted aspect of the lane isn't the classic ghost and phantom variety, but a profound and unsettling experience that defies the very laws of physics. At a specific, unmarked point on Straws Lane, an incredible phenomenon occurs. If you put your car into neutral, it will appear to slowly and deliberately roll uphill. If you pour water onto the road, it seems to flow against gravity. This phenomenon, while scientifically explained as an optical illusion caused by the surrounding landscape distorting the horizon, has given rise to local, more supernatural explanations. Some believe the effect is caused by a mysterious magnetic pull emanating from nearby Hanging Rock, a place known for its own unsettling history and energy. Others suggest the lane is a mystery spot of warped reality, a place where the veil between what is real and what is impossible has been momentarily pulled back. Real-life encounters on Straws Lane revolve entirely around this uncanny feeling of being controlled by an unseen force. Drivers who stop and engage the neutral gear report an intense feeling of being pushed up the incline, a sensation that is completely at odds with their logical understanding of the world. It's an interactive haunting. The road itself is doing the work. This eerie experience leaves visitors with the chilling thought that perhaps they haven't just experienced an illusion, but have truly been at the mercy of a strange, invisible force controlling their journey. 4. Tanami Road. The Tanami Road, also known as the Tanami Track, is a 1,050-kilometer stretch of unforgiving dirt and gravel that cuts through the remote Outback, linking Alice Springs in the Northern Territory to Halls Creek in Western Australia. Its original history is one of sheer isolation and the immense struggle of traversing the Central Australian desert. It is a road that eats vehicles, a place where a breakdown can be a fatal mistake. While it has a unique geological feature, the immense and ancient Wolf Creek meteorite crater is accessible via a turnoff. It is this landmark that contributes to the modern dread of the Tanami. The crater was made globally notorious as the setting for the 2005 horror film Wolf Creek, a story about a sadistic serial killer who targets backpackers and travelers in the remote Outback. The history of the film has layered a manufactured, but potent, modern horror onto the already isolated and dangerous nature of the road. Even though the events of the movie are fictional, the film's sheer brutality, combined with the extreme remoteness and the very real dangers of getting stranded, has given the Tanami Road an almost unparalleled sense of dread. For many, a drive down the Tanami Track is a conscious choice to put themselves into a literal horror movie setting. The true haunting of the Tanami is the very real fear of being alone, watched, and utterly helpless in one of the most remote and unforgiving places on Earth, where the line between fictional terror and very real danger is frighteningly thin. The road itself is the monster. 3. The Bloody Mile, Princes Highway South Coast Railway Line, Shellharbour, New South Wales. The Bloody Mile is a notorious name for a section of road in the Shellharbour area, a chilling nickname that speaks volumes about its dark history. The road runs in an isolated pocket, situated between the busy Princes Highway and the South Coast Railway Line, a place easy to access, but also easy to hide in the early days. Its history is tied to the gruesome reality of early colonial and post-colonial violence. According to local historians, this single, desolate stretch of road has been the site of at least 13 murders over the years, along with numerous other unexplained deaths and violent acts. This brutal history is why locals refer to it as the Bloody Mile. In the mid-19th century, a particularly horrifying murder occurred near here, with one victim's head reportedly being impaled on a pole by the roadside near Dunmore House, cementing the bloody moniker in local lore. It is this horrific accumulation of violent death that has fueled the road's reputation. The haunted encounters are not of a single ghost, but a collective of tormented souls. Drivers report encountering the moaning apparitions of the victims, who are seen wandering aimlessly along the road. Witnesses describe the ghosts reaching out, seemingly trying to physically grab onto living travelers, their moans so eerie that they are said to be enough to turn any rational person away from the road after dark. The sightings are tied to a profound sense of anguish and a history that refuses to stay buried, making a drive down the Bloody Mile a terrifying gauntlet through a landscape soaked in trauma. 2. Newell Highway, Pilliga Scrub Area, New South Wales. The Newell Highway is one of Australia's longest inland thoroughfares, running for nearly 1,000 kilometres. The stretch that passes through the Pilliga Scrub is notorious not just for its isolation, but for being a place of deeply unsettling energy. Long before any white settlement, the local Aboriginal people considered the Pilliga region to be a malevolent place, evil land where bad spirits, including the monstrous Yowie, were believed to live. This ancient dread forms the spooky foundation of the road. The more recent, and most famous, haunting relates to the legend of the Pilliga Princess. For years, a homeless, eccentric Indigenous woman, known only as the Princess, was a local fixture. She wandered the highway between Narrabri and Coonabarabran, pushing a shopping trolley full of her worldly belongings. She was a solitary figure, often seen hitchhiking or simply walking the scrub-lined highway. The princess's story tragically ended in 1993, when she was struck and killed by a truck on the highway. Since her death, her spirit seems to be repeating her lonely vigil. Truckers and night travelers report seeing her ghost, a woman with white hair, sometimes with manic eyes and outstretched arms, pushing her ghostly trolley along the roadside. One chilling, specific encounter detailed a truck driver who saw her suddenly run directly towards his vehicle, a terrifying image just before she vanished. The ghostly repetition of her final moments is a common theme. To this day, long-haul drivers, who spend countless nights on Australia's deserted highways, will tell you that the presence of the Pilliga princess on the Newell is a very real, and very chilling, danger. The road's history is a potent mix of ancient indigenous warnings and a modern, personal tragedy. 1. Mount Victoria Pass, Great Western Highway, New South Wales. Before it was a haunted stretch of highway, Mount Victoria Pass was a spectacular engineering marvel carved out of the Blue Mountains by nearly 400 convicts in the 1830s, connecting the early colony's interior to the west. It was an essential, if treacherous, piece of early Australian infrastructure. But its colonial history is stained with a truly heartbreaking tragedy that forever changed the pass. The terror began in 1842 with the brutal murder of a young woman named Caroline Collitz. Caroline, who had left an unhappy marriage to a man of weak mind and was then living with her sister and brother-in-law, was found battered to death beside the road. Her skull was smashed with a large stone. Her brother-in-law was later convicted and hanged for the crime, but the violent final moments of Caroline Collitz would never truly leave the pass. In the decades that followed, long before the age of motorcars, travelers on the isolated pass would report that their horses grew violently restless, skittish, and terrified, refusing to proceed. Then, through the darkness and the cold, the ghostly figure of a woman in black would appear. This apparition, widely believed to be the mournful spirit of Caroline, was described as having a white, pallid face, long dark hair, and hands raised in a terrifying, pleading gesture. Some witnesses even claimed to see her clinging to the backs of carriages, or that her eyes shone like a tiger's in the dark. The famous Australian poet Henry Lawson even wrote a poem about this ghost, immortalizing her as the ghost at the second bridge. Today, the old pass is a section of the Great Western Highway, a modern road with updated bridges. But the spirit of Caroline Collitz is said to remain. Though sightings have lessened, truck drivers and late-night commuters still report inexplicable chills, a sudden, overpowering sense of dread, and the alarming feeling of an invisible presence in their vehicle, all tied back to the tragic history of the lady in black who met her violent end on a cold, colonial road.